Welcome to City Club of Portland's Friday Forum. I'm Courtney Nelson, president of City Club. For 100 years, City Club of Portland is where civic-minded people come together to make Portland and Oregon a better place for everyone to live, work, and explore. We're gathered at the Sentinel Hotel, along with all of you listening on OPB or viewing on Portland Community Media or YouTube. The generous support of City Club's corporate and media partners enables us to put on the state's best civic programs week after week. Our media partner is Oregon Business Magazine, and our current Friday Forum sponsors are Avangrid Renewables, Airbnb, McKinley Irvin, AARP, and Uber. Please join me in thanking all of our sponsors. And now onto our program. The recent election cycle brings 3 new commissioners to Multnomah County, but also some big challenges with healthcare, public safety, libraries, and county-based social services. Our new commissioners make the County Commission an all-women board. I agree, I think that's pretty great. Today we'll hear about their priorities and plans for leading the county in the face of these challenges. Here are our new commissioners today. Dr. Sharon Meieran was a practicing lawyer before going into medicine. She currently practices emergency medicine at Kaiser Sunnyside Medical Center and has used her experience on the front lines caring for those in crisis to inform her policy and advocacy work. She is the incoming Multnomah County Commissioner in District 1. Jessica Vega Pederson is the newly elected Multnomah County Commissioner for District 3. This month, she wraps up her term as State Representative for House District 47, a position that she's held since 2012 when she was the first Latina elected to the Oregon House. Jessica fought for issues such as paid sick time and pay equity, as well as clean energy in her role as chair of the House Energy and Environment Committee. Lori Stegmann grew up in East County and chose to locate her small insurance business in the same community of Rockwood in West Gresham. She's currently serving her second term on the Gresham City Council, which she will resign from to take office as Multnomah County Commissioner for District 4. She currently serves on the board of Oregon League of Minority Voters and is a member of Metro's Powell Division Steering Committee. And our moderator today is Serena Cruz. Serena is the Executive Director of the Virginia Garcia Memorial Foundation, and she is also a former Multnomah County Commissioner. Please welcome our panel today.
Thank you for that great introduction, and thank you to the members of the audience who, Portlanders, you made it through all that snow and ice. So thank you for being here. I wondered if anyone would be. And to the panelists and the members of our listening audience, I have to tell you that as a former county commissioner, I am really looking forward to this panel, and I'm super excited about you all taking office next month. So we're going to start off with a question about getting to know you all. And I would like each of you, as we get through the program, we'll just direct a question to one of you. But for these first 2 questions, I'd like for each of you to answer them. So Lori, would you start off with telling us about why you ran for Multnomah County and what you hope to do once there?
Sure. Thank you, Serena. Thank you so much for having me here today. It's such an honor. Many of you may know that I'm an adoptee. So I'm an immigrant. I grew up in Rockwood, one of the poorest neighborhoods probably in Oregon. And being an adoptee, I just saw an important need to serve others because I was so blessed to have so many opportunities. And I just want that same opportunity to pay that back and to pay it forward. So I'm really excited to bring my experience from the council, as well as just my own lived experience to serve the folks in Multnomah County.
So thanks, Serena. So I think why I ran for the county has to go back to why I ran for office in the first place. I live in East Portland, actually very close to Rockwood, where Lori's from. And when I first decided to run for office, I was a mom of a 3-year-old and an 18-month-old. And I was out in East Portland taking my kids for walks, but having to push the stroller, in the street because we didn't have sidewalks in East Portland. And for those of you who've been out in East Portland, the bicycle lanes that we have out there aren't used that much by bicyclists. They're usually used by people and seniors in motorized wheelchairs. So there were a lot of needs in the neighborhood where I came from, and I wanted to run for office to be able to be a change, to be a voice for change at that, and I did at the state. But the thing about being at the state is we got to do some amazing things there, but I really feel that the county is the place where you can have an immediate impact on people's lives in a really critical way, and those are some of the core things: mental health services, housing services, seniors, people with disabilities, youth. So those are the things that I'm really anxious to get started with this new job.
Sharon.
Hi. So I ran for this office for a lot of the same reasons that I wanted to become a doctor, and that is to help those who are most in need, who are most vulnerable. I'm an ER doctor, so it's also in times of crisis. And doing that work, which has been really quite incredible, has allowed me to see some overarching systems working in the ER. This is where it's the true safety net. This is where people come when they don't have anywhere else to go, and it is so much not just healthcare. It is that people don't have a place to live. They're suffering from mental illness that's been untreated. They're a new immigrant and isolated. There's so much there. And I realized that you can only do so much taking care of one person at a time. And while I love that, you can make a bigger impact at the policy level. And what the county does is what I see every day in the emergency department and the people I serve. So I'm really excited.
Sharon, that's a perfect transition to the next question, and I'd love you to kick us off. So, Multnomah County is a very unique government in this region, and when you think of it in comparison to the state, one of my favorite sayings is to repeat a former saying of Beverly Stein, our county chair. She would say that the county serves the community's neediest and the community's naughtiest. So what does that mean to you, and do you think that role makes sense?
The role absolutely makes sense. Another way that I heard it described, and what draws me to this is that, for local government, the city is does the bricks and mortar, and the county is the heart and soul. I feel that sometimes the neediest may become the, quote, naughtiest because they don't have the support that they need. And so I think what the county's role is to serve those who are most in need.
Yes, so I've heard that saying before, and I think it's apt, but I think that the key heart of the work that Multnomah County does is that we help people when they're in crisis, whether that crisis is something about getting services or where they've fallen through the cracks and they're in our criminal justice system. And it's how we work with those people, how we serve those people really shows who we are as a society, who we are as a community. And that's why I'm so excited about doing the work at the county, because I think that we have a responsibility to do that work with a focus on equity, with a focus on empowering people. And I'm really excited with the opportunity to do this with these two women on the stage and with Commissioner Smith and Chair Kafoury.
Well, coming from a Gresham City background, as some of you may know, cities deal more with the infrastructure of how to run a city and not as much with the social issues, although in recent years we've had to start addressing those issues. And that's really where I found my passion, is wanting to go to that next level of wanting to serve people that are vulnerable. And one of the ways I think we can do that is through the LEAD program, which is the Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion Program. And there's an intersection where our built environment and our institutions and our systems all affect those folks, and keeping people out of the criminal justice system in the first place is a huge priority for me. Secondarily, once they're there, I think it's important that we provide them the resources they need so that they can become self-sufficient and independent of social services once they leave society or leave the prison system after they've served their debt to society. So all of these things are all, as you all know, are so intersected, and I want to be able to come at some of our social issues from every angle possible.
Thank you. Thank you all. For the next sets of questions, I'm going to direct them to each of you individually. And the first set of questions is going to relate to healthcare because that's such an important issue to me and to Multnomah County. So for the audience's benefit, I'll preface the health questions with a sense of scale and priority. With 26 clinics, 29% of all county employees, and a $336 million budget, Multnomah County represents the state's largest federally qualified health center. To get a sense of comparison of the 31 FQHCs in the state, Virginia Garcia is the next largest with a $60 million budget and 16 clinics. So nearly 370,000 Oregonians get access to health care at an FQHC, and last year Multnomah County served 1 in every 5 of those individuals. So Sharon, do you agree with the prioritization of this budget item, and do you see a changing role for Multnomah County in this region, in this area?
I absolutely agree with the prioritization, and that is because healthcare, we need to think of healthcare in a different way than I think has traditionally been thought of. Healthcare is much broader. It ties into our environmental health. It ties into the public health. It ties into so many of the social services that we provide, into our public safety, our criminal justice system as well. And so if we do healthcare right in an integrated way, the impact that we can make on all the other areas that the county serves is tremendous. So absolutely.
And just as a follow-up, post this election cycle, do you see that having an impact on the county's role?
And yes, I do see that having a significant impact on the county's role. We don't know what is going to be happening with the Affordable Care Act. We don't know what will happen with a lot of the work that we've been doing in Oregon, where we've been at the vanguard. We're the leaders in healthcare transformation and dealing with some of these upstream public health issues. But what is really encouraging, like a little bright spot, is that our state does care and prioritize this. We have had, okay, get closer to the microphone. We have had a lot of experience, and we're doing this work before it became a federal priority. So we're the leaders here, and we have a commitment in our state and in Multnomah County in particular to continue to serve those who are most in need, to dedicate our resources there, and to support those who need it most. Anybody who lives here.
Sharon, you are fantastic with the segues. I'm going to ask Jessica this next question. There are 8 access points for healthcare in Clackamas County, 11 access points in Washington County, and 64 access points in Multnomah County. Jessica, do you have a role in increasing access to quality healthcare for all Oregonians, and in particular, if you could address Cover All Kids and that initiative as it relates to other Oregonians?
Yes, absolutely. So I think that the county can pride itself on making healthcare as accessible as it has. And I think you've seen steps to make this a priority, the total care of a person in bringing the mental health care and pairing that with the physical health care under the health department. I think that's a huge step. And I think that we will continue at Multnomah County, I know I'm dedicated to it, is providing the care to anybody who lives here, regardless of where they came from, if they're a member of our community. And I think that we're going to see that at the state, the push at the state level to do that, and I think that would be a really positive step for Oregon. But, you know, and I think that they'll know that they have the power and the numbers of Multnomah County supporting in that work.
Given your experience, should we expect you to take a lead role in that effort?
Yeah, I mean, had I been still at the legislature, that would definitely be one of my high priorities. But I think that especially in this role as a county commissioner and knowing that Multnomah County plays such a huge role in delivering health care to our most populous region, this is a chance for me to use my voice in that discussion that's going to be happening at the state.
Fantastic. So Sharon also referenced upstream issues of health, and I'd like to turn to social determinants of health. The social determinants of health are the conditions in which people are born, live, work, and age. They are shaped by the distribution of money, power, and resources at a global, national, and local level. Social determinants of health account for an estimated 40% of our healthcare outcomes. Lori, how do you see the county addressing these important factors for overall health?
Well, I mean, I think it needs to start with a level playing field, is that we all know that we're not, unfortunately, born with the same access to resources. And again, growing up in the Rockwood neighborhood where I still own my small business, I see that every day I drive to work. And so what my goal will be is to level that playing field and make sure that people have access to all of the resources. And I think a lot of that has to do with education and job training. And, there's some disparities. And we've been talking about it. The current board has been talking about it for a long time and doing good work. And I really want to champion that even further by modeling a diverse staff and lots of diverse internships and giving people lots of opportunities.
Thank you, Lori. And before we go on with our questions, I need to give a special reminder for our OPB audience. For those of you listening on OPB, this is City Club of Portland's Friday Forum. I'm Serena Cruz, the Executive Director of the Virginia Garcia Memorial Foundation. Here with me today are three newly elected Multnomah County Commissioners, Sharon Meieran, Jessica Vega Pederson, and Lori Stegmann. We're learning about their priorities and plans for leading Multnomah County in the face of tremendous challenges. So with that transition, let's move on to the next question, which is also part of the social determinants of health, but we're going to take it to a new direction: housing and homelessness. So the fiscal year 2017 county budget includes nearly $45 million in new and existing city and county resources directed to the Joint Office of Homeless Services. Jessica, do you think this new office is well equipped to address our housing crisis? Why or why not?
I think this is a really good positive step to have all the county resources and the city resources brought together under one umbrella to address this issue. I mean, the issue of affordable housing and homelessness in our community is going to need all hands on deck to address it. And we need, we've done work at the state level to provide some support and to give local governments the tools to help address that. And that's the first step. But now, we need to have that work done at the local level. And I'm really excited about the team that's being brought together to work on this issue with the county and the city together. And also, very optimistic with the passing of the affordable housing bond to be able to actually give some dollars to address this issue. So I'm optimistic about it and know that that's going to be one of the things that we'll be working on in the next 4 years.
Fantastic, thank you. I'm going to turn to crime, public safety. I know it seems like ancient history at this point, but back when I was on the board, we were investing in alcohol and drug treatment, mental health and drug courts, and generally trying to serve folks in the community by giving them access to better outcomes for lower costs. Yet the problems of overrepresentation of people of color in the criminal justice system persist. Lori, given the findings of a recent study highlighted by the Oregonian that African Americans, Latinos, and Native Americans are significantly overrepresented in drug possession charges, do you agree with Governor Brown's proposal to reduce some drug possession charges from felonies to misdemeanors?
Absolutely. The fact that we incarcerate people for low-level drug offenses is just makes no sense to me at all. And it's proven that having folks in jail, either on a short-term or a long-term basis, does nothing to rehabilitate them or reintegrate them back into society. So jail is not the answer. And again, going back to the LEAD program, it's a newer model, and I'm really excited to support that program and see what it can do to start changing that paradigm.
Do you think that the criminalization in and of itself, though, is part of the problem with the overrepresentation?
Absolutely. I mean, I've read studies where, Caucasian folks are not being prosecuted or pulled over at the same rate that brown and black people are. So I think we have to look at the very beginning. Why are we pulling people over? And are we pulling over black and brown people at the same rate that we are white people? Those are all questions that I want to work with the District Attorney's Office and the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office with.
Yeah, it's a unique opportunity.
Absolutely.
With all those coming together. Obviously, that struck a chord. In 1998, the year I was elected to the county, we became the second time in the history of the county that it was led by an all-female board. We focused on mental health, libraries, violence against women, and family homelessness. We provided birth control coverage for Multnomah County employees. With the election of the three of you, you will become the fourth or the fifth board to be led by women. I didn't have my facts straight. I probably should have asked Deborah. Fourth or the fifth? Okay. Oh my goodness, you're gonna have to watch out for your chair. Okay, you will also become the first board with a majority of representatives of color. Sharon, would you please share with us what you think is the impact of the demographic board representation on the policies of the future?
Well, I cannot tell you how excited I am to be on this particular board. I think that it will have a tremendous impact in terms of the way that we relate, and that the way that our individual experiences contribute to our discussions, our policies, what we bring to the board as a whole. I think it's just going to be fabulous.
Lori, I got lots of advice over the years when I was running for office, and some of it was even good. One of my favorite pieces of advice came from former City Commissioner Eric Sten. He told me that it was a really unique opportunity to become a county commissioner. You didn't have administrative departmental management responsibilities. You have a paid staff. You have a paid job. The job is what you make it. What do you want to do to take advantage of this really unique opportunity?
Well, this is such a tremendous opportunity, not just for me, but I think for communities of color. I will be the first Asian American ever in 162 years of Multnomah County's history to be elected to this board. Thank you. And as you know, the Asian community is sometimes known as the model minority, and with that comes good and bad things. So I'm really excited to bring a voice to people who haven't necessarily been at the table. But moreover, I really want to look at the racial disparities from the criminal justice system to jobs and education, and from every aspect. So it's kind of like being, you're right, as I looked at the description of what the chair gets to do, she does a lot of work. And so what I get to do is, it's kind of like being Miss America, where it's like, what do you want to do? I want to, I want world peace, and I want to solve hunger. So, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to, support organizations and funding and programs that help improve the lives of women, children, and minorities, and our most vulnerable citizens.
Fantastic. Jessica, another piece of good advice that I received was from Don Washburn, the former CFO of Northwest Airlines. He said I needed to pick 3 things, values or ideas, that I would not compromise on, and then compromise on everything else. What do you think of this advice, and what are the 3 things you would not compromise?
So I think that is probably sage advice, because you definitely have to pick the battles that you're going to fight. And so I I've learned from experience, if you try to take everything on, you're not going to win. One of the things that I'm really excited about the board and that I'm serving on and the women that I'm serving with is that we all have our strengths and experiences where we're coming from. To help lead on a lot of different issues. For me, I think the things that are going to be so important to me and the work that I'm going to do as a Multnomah County Commissioner will be looking at racial disparities and immigration issues and how we can really be a welcoming, inclusive county for everyone. That will be one of the things. I'm really excited about taking the track record I have at the legislature and working on climate issues and sustainability issues and bringing that focus at the county level, both for our internal county departments, but also Multnomah County as a whole, and working with the city on some of our climate plans. So those are two main things. And I think the other thing is a really big passion of mine is resiliency of the county. And for me, I look at that and I say, we're just had a snowstorm where we had people stranded for hours in their car trying to get from one place to another, even if it was just a normal 20-minute commute. What are we going to do if there's going to be an earthquake here? What are we going to do if we're really going to need? I mean, again, Multnomah County has always helped people in crisis, but I think when you look at the resiliency that we need in our bridges and in our buildings, that's something that I'm going to fight for.
Great, thank you. So Sharon, you get to be the wonderful keeper of my unsolicited advice. So my unsolicited advice is that the county budget, oh, am I there? I'm there? Okay, there it is. That the county budget is the key. That, when it's a $1.5 billion government, that the programs and services that are prioritized there and reflected there are where a good chunk of commissioner time and energy could be spent to see that the things you care about get done. Do you like budgets? And yeah, do you like budgets? I'll leave it there.
I love budgets.
Yes.
So obviously I've never worked with a budget on this scale before, but I do appreciate the intricacy and the importance of allocation of the federal dollars we get, the state dollars that we get, our property tax revenue, et cetera, and how we allocate that money, those resources, is how we affect our policy. And so we take I want to take my policy priorities and my other board members' policy priorities and figure out how to most effectively use those resources. They're limited. They're going to be more limited, unfortunately, over time. But we can do really good things with the resources we have. So focusing there is essential.
That's great. Thank you. Let's turn to some other topics like mental health. Will you, Sharon, you want to take it on? That's fantastic. I'm going to turn to you then to take it on. It's a system that has always struggled in Multnomah County, and there's a new idea for the triage effort, but I'd love to hear what your thoughts are around mental health and how we can shift that dynamic here.
Yeah, this has been something that I have been passionate about. This is one of the main reasons that I ran for this position, is mental health care. And I see it in the emergency department. I see how we treat people in mental health crises, and it is often inhumane. And there is a lot of what goes into why people end up in crisis, ending up in the emergency department, et cetera. And it ties into all the stuff the county does. I mean, there's whether it's homelessness, whether there's lack of services that are available before you get to a crisis point, how we reach out and get people to those services. And I think we're at a really unique point where this is bubbled to the surface. I mean, there's the consolidation with the mental health department in the public health department, which I believe is where it should be. I think that we have some really great people working on this. And we have the new Unity Center, which will, if done right, provide us an opportunity to take people with mental health crises and not just treat that crisis, but put people on a better path so that we can prevent the future crises and that we can integrate some of our other social systems, our housing, our criminal justice system, and make a real impact in mental health care. I mean, what I would like to see at the end of my term is that we've actually moved the dial in this system that has not moved for way too long.
Thank you. No conversation about the county would be complete without talking about the libraries. Jessica, will you talk about, now that the voters have created the district, how will you support the governance of the libraries, and what can you see their role moving, changing, doing?
I'm so glad I got the library question. I absolutely love our county library system. I think it is one of the jewels of our region, and it's something that I'm a huge frequenter with my two kids. I mean, we live less than a mile from Midland Library, and we're there at least a couple times a month. So it is something that, for me, is an integral part of my life. But I also see it as, really centers of communities when you look at who access the library. I mean, it's people who need help looking for jobs. It's a place where people go when they need a warm place to sit for a little bit. It's where you take your baby so you can have a baby mommy class and get access to books. So these are really the heart of our communities. I would love to be the county liaison to our library system and support the work that they're doing. I think it's fantastic that there's a independent library district so that they have a stable, predictable source of funding that they can count on to continue to grow. And I think that the direction that we're going to be going with our library system in the next 10 to 20 years is absolutely fantastic. So they're going to be looking at what we want, asking the community, what do we want our libraries to look like? And part of that is going to be not just a place where people go to quietly read, but it's where you go to make things. It's where you go to discover. It's where you go to learn. And there's so many ways that people can access that at a library, and looking at the ways that we could bring that together within the library roof in the future.
Thanks for that framing. We go to the Albina branch, and I love our libraries too. Okay. One more OPB reminder. For those of you listening on OPB, this is City Club of Portland's Friday Forum. I'm Serena Cruz, the Executive Director of the Virginia Garcia Memorial Foundation. Here with me today are our three newly elected Multnomah County Commissioners, Sharon Meieran, Jessica Vega Pederson, and Lori Stegmann. We're learning about their priorities and plans for leading Multnomah County in the face of tremendous changes. So Lori, let's turn to you. You live out in East County. And East County, the transportation department is far more based and situated and connected to East County residents. What do you think are the biggest challenges facing county transportation?
Well, we just wrapped up. I serve on the PAL Division Steering Corridor Committee, and it was a 3-year-long process. And as we know, the population is exploding, especially in East County. And we were disappointed that the PAL Division Steering transit route, the bus rapid transit route, is not going out to Mount Hood Community College. And we were extremely, extremely disappointed about that. However, that being said, it is going to go to the Gresham Transit Station, which is downtown Gresham. And in our deliberations and negotiations with TriMet, they've been a great partner. And we're actually going to end up getting better bus routes out to Mount Hood Community College, and actually probably serving the area better than we would have if the transit center had gone directly out to the college. Now, we're still going to fight, and it might be another 10 years, but at some point I would really like to see the transit center go all the way out to Mount Hood Community College. But connecting Rockwood with the central city core of old historic downtown Gresham and what's called the civic neighborhood, where potentially maybe there might be a city hall there, connecting those three hubs together will be really important. And then, of course, just the light rail. Folks depend so heavily on transportation in East County, and so that will be critical to upgrade those stations and make sure that there's timely trains and bus routes, and we have a lot of north-south connections that need to be made. But again, funding is always an issue, but serving East County residents and making sure that their needs are met is a high priority for me.
Thank you. A follow-up question on transportation to any of you. The city does most of the roads in the city, and the county manages the bridges. Does that make sense? And what are you interested in doing?
It may not make the most sense, but that is the way it is. And so I think that makes it even more important that we have really good relationships with our Sydney partners on the work that needs to be done to ensure that our bridges are resilient and capable of getting people where they need to go on the east and west sides of the city. And you know, I think that we have a really good track record with the work that's just been done on the Selwood Bridge of the work that the county can do, and I think we'll continue to that into the future as we look at the needs that we have on the Burnside Bridge and the other bridges.
So now I've got a question to you that comes from me as a parent, and it's to any of you, and it's really, I look at our school system, and Multnomah County does not directly fund the schools, but what will you do to preserve and protect and expand our children's access to a quality education when it's looking pretty dire in a state that refuses to fund them?
Well, I think that one of I have those same concerns. My kids are in Portland Public Schools right now, and I think what we can really do as a county is what Jessica had said in terms of transportation, our relationship with the city, our relationship as a county with the school board and with our other local governments and with the state. We can help provide supports so that teachers can focus on what they need to do so kids can come to school not being hungry, having parents who are able to be there for them, having mental health support services so that the schools can focus their very limited resources on what they need to do, which is to educate our children.
If I could add on, the Sun School system is incredibly important to me. And just as Sharon said, if we know that if kids can show up housed and fed, their chances of success increase dramatically. So while the county doesn't deal directly with education, they can certainly provide those wraparound services to help our kids succeed. Also, with the school-based health clinics, I just saw where Roosevelt celebrated their 30-year anniversary and how it was quite controversial 30 years ago to have a school-based health clinic. And now people are clamoring to have one in every school. And so I think making schools the community center of our communities is the right way to go, and making sure that all kids have access to the basic needs being met, that's going to help our kids get educated.
Super. Jessica, did you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that I agree wholeheartedly with the importance of the Sun School systems. For me, early childhood investment is a huge priority, and I think makes a big difference in when you deliver quality childcare programs in attacking some of the achievement gap problems that we see. So I think that there's roles that the county has to play as part of the Multnomah Early Learning Commission, but one of the other things I think that we can do as elected officials, as Multnomah County Commissioners, is to really be strong advocates for those policies that are being discussed at the state level that impact education. And one of those things is also, property tax reform. When we look at the funding, the change in funding that happened with the passage of Measure 5 and Measure 50 in the state, we see a huge change in how we are paying for education. And I think that that's an issue that we're going to have to tackle at some point if we want to try to break the really dismal statistics we see in terms of graduation rates and equity gaps.
So I'm going to use that equity gap to segue to a question that we received from our audience, and that's given the comparison between the county commission representation, especially with the three of you being elected, and the city of Portland's representation, all white, almost all male, with few exceptions. I think over the history, there have been 8 women elected to the Portland City Council and 2 people of color. Why do you think that disparity exists in our local elections, and how would you engage around changing that?
Well, I think for me, my 18-year-old daughter is with me, and I was thinking about the opportunities that I had growing up, and I didn't have a lot of strong role models other than my parents, and I certainly didn't have any strong women or folks of color. And that's the difference, is that my daughter knows our chief of police, who's a woman. She knows legislators. She knows executives. She knows extremely accomplished volunteers. And I think that by just being here and showing up and modeling good behavior. And Carol Nielsen Hood was a past Gresham City Councilor, and I looked at her, and I never, for women, we're always like, we don't always self-identify into leadership roles. And I looked at Carol Nielsen Hood and said, you know what? This woman's a Gresham City Councilor. I can be a Gresham City Councilor. And I think that that's true. And so I hope that other young women can look at us and I'll say, look at these amazing, accomplished, smart women. We can do anything that we set our minds to. And I know that I want to provide a pathway to help those young folks.
So I think that your question was, why is there the difference in what leadership looks like at Multnomah County versus what it looks like in the city government? And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. I think one of the ones, though, that you have to talk about is the structure of the government and how you can run for office at the city versus at the county, right? We each represent a district. So that means in terms of reaching out to voters, we have a smaller pocket of voters than you do at the city. When you run for city commissioner, you are voted on by every single person in the city of Portland. That's much more expensive. It takes much more work. You have to have much higher name recognition. So those are, I think, a higher bar to run in some places. And because of that, I think, just like you see in women running for office for any position, you see fewer women stepping up to do that. You see more men raising their hand to do that. And it's also that network and connection that you have to be able to take on that bigger role. So I think that if you want to see some change, how the districts are made up is a part of it. Although I have to say, I am absolutely thrilled to see more gender equality on the Portland's City Council, and I think that will be a really good thing, and we'll probably see that have impact on the policies that come out of the Portland City Council too.
And I would just add, I completely agree with Lori and Jessica that campaign finance reform would have an impact, I think, as well, in terms of who runs for office, because I think, as we've seen, as Jessica mentioned, traditionally men have more of that networking, I'm going to run for this office, and are able to garner that financial support in a way that may traditionally have been more challenging for women. So at the county, having the district-wide elections versus the city-wide elections, those are less costly and so I think makes it seem more doable in some ways. So I think campaign finance reform would be able to level the playing field a lot more if it's done right and encourage others.
I certainly agree with all of you in the aspects that you're bringing up about why we're seeing some of that difference, but I think it'd be impossible not to call out the misogyny that is also a factor when women run for city council. I think there is a perception that that's a male job in this city, and I think we have to challenge ourselves. it's been a wonderful election to see misogyny get challenged. Sad to see the glass ceiling not get broken at a national level. And I think we have to look locally at why. It's all of those things you mentioned, but even where there are equal funds raised, women don't win. So I think it's a critical piece for us to spend a little, more time, and I look forward to your guys' leadership in the years ahead. So I'm going to give an OPB reminder, and then we will begin Q&A at the microphones. So for those of you listening on OPB, this is City Club of Portland's Friday Forum. I'm Serena Cruz, Executive Director of the Virginia Garcia Memorial Foundation. Here with me today are 3 newly elected Multnomah County Commissioners, Sharon Meieran, Jessica Vega Pederson, and Lori Stegmann. We are learning about their priorities and plans for leading Multnomah County in the face of tremendous challenges. And I hope that some of you have been prompted with some questions, and we turn that over. So now let's go to you. If you've written a question on an index card, hold it high for staff to collect. I'll read at least one index card question, and we will invite City Club members to ask their questions at the microphone. Asking questions at the Friday Forum microphone is a benefit of City Club membership, and membership is open to everyone. So please identify yourself as a City Club member and ask one question in 30 seconds or less, and I will monitor the time.
My name is Steve Weiss, and I am a City Club member. I'll try to make this fast. There's awfully bad stuff happening at the federal level. We have a major budget shortfall at the state level. An array of federal social safety net programs are in danger. Programs like Oregon Project Independence and the new General Assistance Program are in danger in the state. You want to talk about mental health? Think about what's going to happen to people's mental health if their Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, SSI, food stamps, and other programs are cut, as the Trump administration is going to do. Is there any kind of contingency plan, some sort of fail-safe for people who lose their services, whose incomes are cut by these programs, that the county can do? I mean, I think the Board
Great, Steve. Let's let them have a chance. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, a lot of people are scared. We don't know what's going to happen with the Affordable Care Act, but I think it's safe to say that there's going to be some major changes. The good news is that it will take some time for that to occur. And the Multnomah County Board of Commissioners serves as the health department. We have an amazing staff that executes those policies, and they will remain to serve our most vulnerable citizens aside from Obamacare. So of course, we will always, advocate for funding to serve our most vulnerable people, but that's who we're serving now at the County Health Department. And I'm committed as commissioner to make sure that we still have that funding, regardless of what happens.
Thank you.
Kurt Wabering, member. I'm on a board of a domestic violence shelter, and I would think that as an all-woman Board of Commissioners, you would be particularly alert to the issues there. A very brief story. We met.
Brief.
Okay.
Could you ask your question?
All right. Well, my question is perhaps just this. What's your perspective on domestic violence, and how can we increase the number of shelters and shelter beds to serve this group?
Excellent. Thank you.
So in my district is the Gateway Center, and this has been a critical piece in providing care to women in our region who need it. I mean, this is a really big issue that I think the county has done a good job prioritizing resources for it, and that's something that we have to continue. I think it's working with, in all the different ways that people come in contact with county services, making sure that they know that that's a doorway to the help that they need, and then continuing to prioritize through our budget, funding the resources that provide help to people, as well as partnering with the many nonprofit organizations in our community that provide care to the women too.
Anyone else want to respond? Nope. Okay.
Hi,
Bobby?
I'm Bobby Regan. I'm a City Club member. My understanding is that the responsibility for homeless families falls with the county, but with homeless individuals falls with the city. So does that make sense, or is there a better way going forward?
Go ahead, Jess. Well, that's the way it used to be, and thanks to the Joint Office of Homeless Services, those two segments are now combined. And no, it did not make sense, and I'm not really sure what happened. It's kind of like our bridges. But I think we have a path forward with a home for everyone, and I want to thank Chair Kafori's leadership and the collaboration. I mean, as a Gresham City Councilor, we are part, City of Portland, Home Forward, Multnomah County, City of Portland, we all need to get on the same page, and that is happening. Huge congratulations. City of Portland was recognized for the White House Mayor's Challenge in 2015 of housing all homeless veterans. That's a big deal, and we don't talk about that. So not very many states are doing that. So yeah, we should be very proud. I mean, we need to do more, and there's so much work that lies ahead, but we also have to really stop and look at the work that we've accomplished. So I think A Home for Everyone, I know Mark Jolin, under his leadership, he's here, has done a tremendous job.
Is there another question at the mic? I've got, here, I'll go ahead and go to a question that I've got. And then we'll return to the microphone. For Commissioner-elect Vega Pederson, will you share your thoughts about what the country can do to prepare for an influx of climate refugees and an increase in demand for and impacts on our regional natural resources, specifically drinking water and the Mount Hood National Forest, where clean drinking water is generated in our region? It's a big question.
That is a big question, but it's not. I mean, it's not an inappropriate one, because I think that I just had a conversation the other day with somebody who said, you know, when you look at the demand, the increase in the rent, how hot our housing market is. I mean, how much of this is people who are climate refugees who are coming here because we will have access to clean water, that we will, you know, we will have access to like more moderate temperatures. So this is something that we have to be thinking about. But I think we address it in the same way that we were addressing anyway, the expectation that our population is going to be growing in our state, and especially in our region, where we are making sure that we're working for affordable housing so that people can continue to afford to live in our city, and that we don't become like a San Francisco where people can't afford to live there. I think, you know, we are truly lucky in the fact that we have access to such an amazing water supply here with the Bull Run Reservoir, as well as all of our, you know, our rivers that give us this great hydropower that we have in our state as well. And these are resources that we need to really treasure and protect and keep them in the hands of the public so that we always have access to that water.
Thank you. Is there another question at the microphone?
First of all, I want to address. I want to ask, how many people are born and raised in Portland, Oregon? Stand up.
How many born and raised?
Born and raised in Portland, Oregon. Stand up. That's what's up. How many people born in Portland from Northeast? That's what's up. So.
Did you introduce yourself? No, just please introduce yourself and then ask a question. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm asking the question is, every time that you guys are talking on the board, what you're talking about, I can understand it, I can address it, and I get it. But the thing is that you're not putting it in layman's terms for the people who are born and raised from Portland, Oregon. You're putting it in addressing to people who are not from here, and you're not from here.
So what would you like them to address, sir?
For what I'd like you to address is like the homelessness, that we've never had so much of it. Born and raised 46 years.
So your question is, could they please address homelessness and why it's so more difficult now than in the past? I need your question.
Yeah, but you're cutting me off. So let me
I am. That's right. I need your question.
All right. So let me finish.
Sir?
So my whole point is this. When you're talking about something, when it comes to Northeast Portland, growing up and people know Northeast Portland, put it in layman's terms. Talk to us like you know us, like we're walking down the street. Not the panel that people are not even, have never lived it before. You can't live anything that you've never been about.
Okay, sir, thank you. We appreciate your comments. Okay, are there any other questions? I see one more.
You've talked about the division of roles between the city and the county and how that's been sorted out in the past. And I'm sorry, Ted Kay, City Club member. My question is, thinking about Metro, our regional government, do you think, question for any or all three of you, do you think that there are roles that are that should be moved from Metro to the county, or the county to Metro, or Metro to the city, et cetera, et cetera? How does Metro fit into all of this and the division of roles between the county and Metro?
That's a great question.
Yeah, so I think, Metro, for instance, the parks that they run, they take over all of the county parks, and they are now doing that service for the region with Multnomah County Parks. So that has been allowed the county, I think, to focus on some of the other services that are so needed and that we thrive in. The other piece that Metro has done is really taken a leadership role in talking about regional transportation issues and helping create a forum where we can come together to talk about the needs that we have and what we want our transportation to look like, with active transportation and multimodal, as well as some of the critical the projects that we have to work on and fund in the future. So I think that the role that, that Metro has, both for our green spaces, our open spaces, and looking at how we get around is critical.
Sharon, I know you haven't had a chance talking about. Do you have any?
No, I agree with that. I think that continuing to engage actively with Metro and maximizing our ability to coordinate and collaborate together is going to be important moving forward.
Great.
Hi, Courtney, City Club member. We have our newest city councilwoman came on largely on the affordable housing platform. And so I'm very curious to hear, given that we know that that's going to be a big focus for her, where you guys are looking to work closely with her and what role you think the county should be playing in working with our city council in addressing affordable housing for our city.
Well, I think that we're going to want to work very closely, and I'm excited that she has that that passion and is engaging so deeply in that issue. I see homelessness and affordable housing as a continuum, and so we all need to be engaged in that conversation. And in terms of affordable housing, we need to have, that includes supportive housing with wraparound services for people who the county serves who may have addictions issues or mental health issues. So I think they are intertwined, and we can't work on one without working on the other. So I expect to have a very close working relationship.
And I would just add that I'm looking forward to working with the City of Portland and all the commissioners, especially with the passing of the new housing bond. There's some really creative, innovative things that the City of Gresham has been doing called the Rental Housing Inspection Program, and I don't know why Portland doesn't do it, because when I was out campaigning, I saw some really dilapidated, poor housing situations. So I think there's definitely some opportunities for us to encourage cities to make sure that the standard of living for everyone is safe and clean and secure.
Thanks. Sam, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. I'm Sam Metz. I'm a City Club member. I'd like to revisit one of the catastrophes that we heard about earlier, which is that Multnomah County may become a much larger deliverer of health care given the impending collapse of Oregon's Medicaid program. I'd like the comments on what Multnomah County might do, given that Oregon currently owes $1.9 billion in Medicaid advancement, has asked for another $1.3 billion, and there's a general fund shortfall of several $100 million.
Well, I think as Lori mentioned earlier, yes, there are some very dismal projections that are out there, but we do not know at this point, what's going to be happening with the affordable. We have suspicions, but we don't know what's going to be happening with the Affordable Care Act. And whatever is going to happen, we do know at this point that it will be a year's transition into whatever new system is going to be there. And so I'm not sure we have the information available to be able to answer that question at this point. But what we will continue to do is engage with the state, continue in our role of ensuring that we are there as the safety net for the most vulnerable, and that we are using whatever dollars that we have most effectively to provide services for the most people and help the most people.
And I would add, back to Jessica too, is that tax reform, I mean, we have to get whatever that looks like at the legislature, but we have to get upstream from these issues. And I would say, let's spend the money while we've got it for prevention, because we know that when we start throwing money at things downstream, it is so much more expensive, and it doesn't work. So I think we continue to try to be innovative. Again, going back to the LEAD program, let's try some new creative, innovative ways to help people before they become seriously sick.
Well, I want to thank the three of you. It's time for us to wrap up. I want to thank the three of you for being here, the members of our audience here, the members listening, folks listening. It was truly my pleasure. This is a sliver of optimism in a time when I'm not feeling generally optimistic. So thank you. Thank you very much. Courtney?
I agree. I'm glad that we're ending our Friday Forum for 2016 on a positive note with these wonderful role models. If this program has inspired you to join City Club today, you can do so at the back of the room. I'm Courtney Nelson, President of City Club. Please join me in thanking Bobby Regan and Sam Metz of the Friday Forum Committee for producing our program today. And again, thanks to our wonderful panel, and we will see you in the new year. Thanks.